Let's raise your story stakes. Every story needs stakes, or else you risk losing your readers. Raising the stakes isn't difficult, but it does require a few strategies. So without further ado, let's discuss how to raise the stakes in your story. Let's get started. Hey guys, Nour here, and welcome back to my channel. For those visiting for the first time, hello! I'm the fantasy author of the novel Divinity Falling. Be sure to subscribe for weekly writing advice videos. So I'm just going to hop right into my tips. Tip number 1. To raise the stakes in your story, make sure personal stakes are at play even when it comes to the conflict at large. Sure, your story might be about a character trying to win a contest. The conflict at large is that failing to win the contest means that the protagonist won't win 100 grand. But the personal stake is that failing to win the contest means the protagonist won't be able to pay for her mother's cancer treatment. Sure, money is great, but that's not personal. What's personal is the character losing her mother. By making the stake personal and tying it to the conflict at large, the reader is instantly invested. This protagonist has a lot to lose than just a contest. If you're not sure if you have personal stakes in your story, ask yourself, what can your protagonist lose if they fail to achieve their goal? And how does failing affect them personally? Tip number 2, make sure your character's choices have consequences. Name one person whose actions don't have any consequences. You can't, can you? That's because every action has an equal or opposite reaction. It's natural, and your story won't feel believable without it. Of course, not every action your characters make should have a positive reaction. Yes, sometimes we do something and it turns out in our favor, but other times we make mistakes. We hurt people, we miss deadlines, or we just downright fail at something that we thought we could attain. It's normal. So if your characters aren't making mistakes, that's not normal. Allow your protagonist the freedom to make choices that don't always turn in their favor. This will raise the stakes and finally make attaining their goal at the end that much more worthwhile. Tip number 3, consider adding a ticking time bomb. This doesn't have to be a literal bomb, but it can be. By having your characters on a time crunch to achieve their goal, you instantly raise the stakes. Now, both characters and readers will be wondering if the characters will achieve their goal in time. Will your character be able to win the contest in time to help her mother get the best cancer treatment? Will your character get to the boat dock before the antagonist takes off with his kidnapped daughter? A ticking time bomb is a surefire way to raise the stakes. Keep in mind, a ticking time bomb doesn't have to lead to a life or death situation. It can be as simple as rushing to get to school on time before the bell goes off to avoid negative consequences. Tip number 4, utilize the pacing of your writing to up the tension. When there is conflict, especially during the climax, adding tension quickly raises the stakes. One way to do that is by writing short, quick sentences. Longer sentences tend to slow the pace, whereas shorter sentences create this feeling of urgency. Another tactic is to create fast-paced action scenes where characters have to think and act fast. Again, this can be something like the ticking time bomb scenario where they need to decide things fast before time runs out. But the main thing to concentrate on is writing fast-paced scenes that move the story forward. Of course, do keep in mind that not every scene should be a fast-paced scene. Otherwise, readers won't feel the urgency. Instead, save the fast-paced writing for those scenes where things really go down, especially your climax. Tip number 5, make sure each scene or chapter raises the stakes even if in a small, subtle way. For example, your protagonist might have a small victory, and even though this victory brings about some relief and isn't itself not a stake, you can use it like a domino effect. The small victory causes a chain reaction that sets up other events, and those events would have high stakes. Let's say your character finally beats his bully in the 3rd chapter by literally punching him senseless. For that scene, that small moment, we're relieved, and so is your protagonist. He finally got a win. But of course, if things end here, we wouldn't have a story, at least not a good one. So in the next scene, the protagonist gets called to the principal's office, and both his parents and the bully's parents are there. We instantly raise the stakes, and it all started in a small, subtle way with the character winning at something. In other words, when building the stakes scene by scene, remember that not every scene needs to be terrifying and climactic in order to raise the stakes. Some stakes can be raised in small ways. This also goes back to the 3rd tip. Make sure your character's choices have consequences. Even though your protagonist may do something that momentarily feels in their favor, make sure they deal with the consequences down the road. So that's all I have for you today. I'd love to know, when you think of raising the stakes, what fictional scene comes to your mind? Let me know in the comments. If you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe. I put out weekly writing advice videos that will take your story to the next level. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media to see what I'm up to from day to day and to chat with me. And before we go, I just want to give a quick shout out to Sarah Frayne and Alan J. Early from my shout out tier over on Patreon, as well as all my amazing patrons. Thank you all so much for your support. I really appreciate you. And remember, Nour for president!